The day Dragon Age The Veilguard came out, I made a first impressions video of playing through the prologue and titled it something like, I played the new Dragon Age with low expectations and was pleasantly surprised. That was because, being new to the Dragon Age series, I was coming in with no previous assumptions about what it should or should not be. I just knew, judging from the trailer, that I did not like the art style at all, and I felt like the UI was garishly ugly and that it seemed tonally more for a younger audience than for myself. And during the prologue, I had fun. The art style, while still not what I like, was not completely distracting, and I do like it when good things are good, so I'd rather be optimistic and wrong than nihilistic and right when it comes to predicting the quality of a thing. Now, a month later and over 50 hours into the game, my opinion is surprisingly mostly the same. Veilguard is a very middle-of-the-road game that is fun and engaging enough during the moment-to-moment gameplay, but lacks depth and commitment to the bigger ideas. Doing nothing particularly well, doing most things good enough, while doing a few things very poorly, while sticking the landing on its ending and the arc of its characters well enough. This game is complicated to me. I didn't hate it like I hated Starfield, and I cared more about it than Dragon's Dogma 2, which, after doing also a first impressions video and playing a bit more, bored me so much I couldn't even be bothered to write a bad review on it. This game is interesting to me because I tend to not play okay games. Often I think about how life is too short to consume mediocre things, not when there are masterpieces all around that I am not even aware of. But I don't necessarily think that is a healthy mindset. No, it's more of an anxious, perfectionist one at times. Sometimes it is good to consume things that aren't perfect or bold, because it gives one a better perspective on what art can be. After all, if all one does is drink quality whiskey, one might start to take for granted the qualities that make that whiskey special. And this sounds like a backhanded compliment, I guess it is, but playing Veilguard has made me greatly appreciate Baldur's Gate 3 in ways I definitely took for granted. Namely how frictionless the writing is, how naturally they do exposition, even the well-trodden universe of D&D, they make it feel new and exciting. Veilguard, meanwhile, is more of a family-friendly Marvel action movie with lots of bright colors and set pieces, cringy dialogue that leaves little to the imagination, a high budget, and mostly competent everything else. Given how messy my feelings are, I'm going to structure this essay in a classic way, dividing into the good, the bad, and the ugly. But I already know from my notes that these categories will occasionally mix together since there are few aspects here that are truly bad or truly good. There's also going to be a section where I talk about the non-binary character Taash and how they handled it, since I am also non-binary of the any-all variety, because wow, the online discussion on them has become a train wreck, and I feel particularly qualified to give out my opinion, the opinion that, like the rest of the game, it is handled mostly well with some critical failures that made me want to tear my hair out a bit and scream at my TV. So here it goes. I'm Blake, the Rat Shepherd. Please like and subscribe and all that jazz if these are the kind of videos you want to see more of, and yeah, let's dig into it. First, the context. What the hell is even Dragon Age to begin with? Well, it's a fantasy series that started in 2009 and had 2 other sequels, with each game sharing a grimdark world and lore, but being quite different from each other gameplay-wise. I've never played any of the old ones, but it seems, from the outside looking in, that there is no consensus on what is the best one or the best part of the series. Opinions are diverse in this regard, and BioWare's penchant for changing things, both things that work and things that don't, as well as chasing trends, has led me to believe that judging the series as a whole is complicated. Oh, and it also had gay and even trans characters in it, so those complaining about Dragon Age going woke now with the latest title are just revealing to everyone that they don't actually know what they're talking about. However, it's not a hot take to say that the Veilguard changed things the most for the series. The art style is now vibrant and cartoony, the grimdark features of the world like racism and slavery has been sanded down, and the combat is now fast and action-packed, and if you play the previous games, all of your previous decisions seem to basically matter jack shit. Having no attachment to the series until now, I'm neutral with the changes. But I could see why people who love the previous games are upset, as it is quite a departure even for a series that is known to change things up between games. So, let's dive in with the actual game that I played and talk about it. And yeah, I'm going to be talking spoilers here, so if you care, leave now. But I will say before you go, if you're interested in trying the game yourself, that you'll probably better enjoy it during the summer sale while waiting for better games to come out. I think the game is good enough to warrant trying it. I don't think it's good enough to pay full price for it, while there are so many other better games to play this holiday. So that's my summary, if you could not tell by the title of the video. Now go on, get. So, the setup in Veilguard is, at the end of the prologue, 2 ancient elven gods have been released, while a third, debatably not evil elven god named Solus, is now trapped in your head, while a zombie-like blight thing is ravaging the land. It's up to your character, Rook, to stop them. You could choose between playing as an elf, a human, a dwarf, or a horned canary, while playing as a mage, rogue, or warrior. And at the end, you get to select from 6 backgrounds, which determine the origin of your character. It's pretty in-depth, and I've had a lot of fun with the character creator. My main playthrough was of an elven mage who was an artifact-seeking veil jumper as a background. It was nice picking a background that wasn't strictly combat-oriented, something more Indiana Jones-like, but unfortunately all the character backgrounds can be summed up as, your character does an objectively right thing and gets outcasted by the higher-ups. The details change, but the broad strokes are the same, which unfortunately sum up the role-playing experience as a whole. Regardless of class, background, gender, or whatever, the protagonist is what I would describe as a chipper Disney or Pixar action hero.
We hid the truth for as long as we could, but yes, Ballara, Davern, and I have secretly been spirits this whole time.
Not funny.
For me personally, I kept getting flashes of Milo from Atlantis, or maybe an adult Jim Hawkins from Treasure Planet in my Rook. Not a bad thing necessarily, just a vibe. And maybe I'm projecting on it, I don't know. Now, let's talk about what I liked about the game. First off, right off the bat, let me rave about how good the performance is. Lord knows my standards have fallen greatly for big AAA releases between Cyberpunk 2077 and Jedi Survivor, and basically every other modern game has just been a shit show for the first few months of release, and this game has been the most smooth, dare I say nearly flawless performance I've played on release in a while. I played on PS5 with the graphics set to default of quality and never bothered to change it. No stuttering, no bugs I'd noticed, good frames. This is a standard which all developers should hold themselves up to when releasing a $60 game. I also love the environments, at least aesthetically. Characters are stylistically over-designed for my taste, but this is inarguably a pretty game. The lighting is impeccable, and turning off the extraneous HUD elements help a lot with this. And, for the most part, I like the main cast. Their dialogue is greatly weighed down by certain aspects of the writing itself, which I'll get into in my bad section, but the arcs the characters have are written sufficiently, and I found myself liking these characters more and more as time went on, even if they did annoy me at first. My least favorites were probably Harding, who I found too chipper and upbeat in a way that felt inauthentic.
We got the dagger, right? Mission accomplished.
And Lucanius, who is just a broody Italian assassin with an evil spirit within him who seemingly only talks about coffee and knives.
Please, you think I'd ever pass up Cafe Pietra's coffee?
And I think my most favorites were Imric, a necromancer with the fear of death, and his Bag of Bones companion Manfred, who, look, okay, maybe this is a character flaw within myself, but I like Manfred, okay? All he does is stand around and hiss, but he's funny in the way Gur is in Invader Zim to me, and yeah, I know, that's probably an indictment of Manfred, but look, I liked him, okay, that's all I'll say. I am a Manfred stan, he's my favorite Bag of Bones. I liked it when he did the hiss.
Yep, same to you.
I also liked it whenever Solus was on screen. He's a complicated antagonist who I was largely sympathetic towards until he betrayed me at least, and acts as a good foil to the pure evil elven gods who chase throughout the game. He comes across as any other charismatic politician or leader, mostly meaning well, but absolutely blinded by his ego, of which his name is from. Solus means pride in Elven, I guess.
The world is broken because of my past choices. It falls to me to heal it, even if that healing comes with a cost.
Combat on the default settings is kind of a slog, with enemies that have way too much health and lacking variety. But with custom settings and as a mage, it was fine. I love spell swords and had fun causing chaos using my magic and felt very in line with my character. I've not played much with the other classes, so I can't comment on them, but it seems people are saying that the mage is the most interesting, so lucky me on choosing correctly the first time. Overall, I had fun with the game. The third act, where shit hits a fan the hardest, and where your decisions dictate who lives and who dies, is solid. It ain't no Witcher, it ain't no Baldur's Gate, but the characters, the combat, and overall plots were enough for me to see it through the end, which is more than a lot of games can do for me. I haven't watched a Marvel movie in a while, but I kind of imagine this might be like that. You know, get a diverse team together, fight evil, make some quips along the way, defeat the evil through the power of friendship, roll credits, and definitely don't think too hard about the details. Hell yeah.
For a world free of the blight!
Now for the fun part of the essay, the bad. The single most damning thing in the Veilguard is easily the writing. Most of it, by volume, is either satisfactory or even occasionally good, with characters who are mostly fleshed out enough for me to root for or against them. The two evil gods you face are cartoony in one note, but that's not inherently bad since they are paired with Solus, who is a much more complicated villain, and many of the other antagonists that deal with side characters also have depth, like the Gloomhowler. The problem that infects the writing like a blight isn't what it's trying to convey, but how it does so. One of the most unpleasant, unwelcomed emotions a person can experience is secondhand embarrassment, the kind you get when a friend makes a bad pun or when someone is failing at flirting. It's a visceral feeling that makes you want to turn away and disengage and take a shower, and this feeling of secondhand embarrassment happens pretty often in dialogue. It completely tarnishes whatever good writing was there before. By volume of the script, the cringy parts are a minority, but it doesn't matter. It's like making a delicious pot of chili but accidentally adding a tablespoon of moldy chili paste to it. Probably not enough to truly ruin the whole thing, but yeah, there's an aftertaste, a funk to it. And frankly, with a script, they probably should have started over. But starting over is hard, so here we are. Here, don't take my word for it. Here's a couple examples of the writing.
Oh, God. Do you want me? Oh, no!
Sorry. Just breaking things.
Of all the ways this could go down, I didn't expect we'd catch you in the bath.
This interruption won't last long.
You know, you're sweet with him?
Aren't I always?
I walked into that. Hey, Hassan, between you and me, I think I like her. A lot. Yeah.
Listen up. If Davrin finds crumbs, Rook takes the fall.
Falling. On it.
You know how it's basically a meme at this point to make fun of a Marvel movie dialogue by saying, awkward, or he's right behind me, isn't he? Or that infamous scene from the Forspoken trailer.
I just moved it with my freaking mind! Yeah, okay, that is something I do now.
It's like that. Not often, and often not as bad, but often enough. In fact, there are so many times where, for long stretches, I was in the groove, enjoying the game and the characters and everything. And then one of them would say some cringy shit, and it would pull me right out the experience. It's immersion breaking. It's unnecessary. An issue that adds to this is that the script is often written in two distinct, contradictory ways. On one hand, this is a world with slavery and blood magic and racism and cursing and all that fun stuff, and you could also have sex with your companions, though it's never really shown. It's actually quite tame. You don't even see a nipple, but whatever. It's not Baldur's Gate. I've accepted that. But yeah, on the surface, it's like, okay, this is a game for adults, right? But on the other hand, all those mature elements are sanded so incredibly down, so much so that I often wondered if maybe I was just too old for this game. That this is directed towards teenagers or young adults. Like, it was weird that the characters would, sure, sometimes say the word fuck, but often they'd use a word like crap or something. And while cities like Minrathous have abundant racism and slavery towards elves, in my playthrough as an elf, I experienced no such friction, which is very weird. Like, as weird as if I were a black man wandering through New Orleans at the height of the Confederacy with nary a sharp glance or a bad word muttered under someone's breath. Sure, I get wanting to step away from the edginess of previous titles and a fantasy series such as The Witcher and Game of Thrones, where, as much as I like those franchises, can be a little much. But why write part of a story where racial tensions are part of the lore and then not engage with it? My brother in Christ, you wrote the story. If you don't want to explore those ideas, fine, but now you sort of halfway are, which is worse, right? You know this is worse. It feels like this is some liberal, I don't see color kind of shit. If I didn't see people criticizing this aspect of the game, I would have had no idea that my elf was in an anti-elf city without looking up the lore. Oh, and just as an aside, why is Minrathous a city that is painted like a fantasy Gotham set during the middle of the day? We're told how corrupt and dangerous it is, and the lighting does not convey that at all. Pioneer Square in Seattle has a reputation for being sketchy at night, but during the day it's also as tame and tourist friendly, and this kind of reminds me of this. Like, how can I be intimidated by just a brightly lit dock? Once again, the game is telling me something but not showing it. I'm hearing about how dark and grimy the city is, but it's just like a market. What's scary about this? Why is it like this? But anyway, not to say that media for teens can't explore complex issues like sexism and racism and whatever. Just look at Avatar: The Last Airbender, for example. But so much of the writing is sanded down and smooth and lacking depth. Good if you don't think about it too hard, and lacking if you do. The game does not know who its audience is. Is it for older fans of the previous games, or for lovers of adult high fantasy, or is it for younger gamers who like Fortnite and Marvel movies? Another big issue with the writing is that, like I said earlier, while the story beats structurally are fine enough, the writing is wrapped in what I could only call therapy speak. Friction between the casts, the driving force of narrative, is barely there, and what is there is handled amateurishly. For example, Okayest gives some coffee to Harding, who has never had it before, and instead of being, honest with how she doesn't like it, she lies badly? Why is this scene like this? Why is she so conflict averse that she can't gently say, oops, not for me? I don't have the footage. I forgot to record this part, so I guess without the footage in the background, the scene makes less sense, but it's really off-putting. The group of heroes assigned to save the world have conflicting ideologies. An assassin working with a noble monster hunter, a detective working with a brash dragon slayer. The potential for friction is there, and it is just not well utilized. And back to the therapy speech, Varric is the worst of it, always spewing platitudes. And sure, at the end, it's revealed that he's dead and just a figment of her imagination, which took me by surprise because my brain is hella smooth. But yeah, at some point, I just started avoiding going near him because it was so obnoxious and sappy.
I didn't come in here trying to take your job, Varric.
I know you didn't, but it's what the team needs right now. You've got a knack, kid.
For what?
Finding a way through the wildest shit I've ever seen.
Luke Stevens, a popular game critic I like, derisively called this game a friendship simulator, which on the surface is not a bad thing. My favorite aspect of storytelling is often the chemistry the characters have with each other, and that was my favorite thing about Mass Effect. But here the writing lacks sincerity and the vulnerability to make it work. Feels like they all talk to each other as if HR is watching them. Can't be too edgy or raw or else they will notice. To me, it reeks both of corporate meddling and writers who are not confident enough in their work to have a voice. Which sucks because there's a lot of good, easily missable side dialogue between the characters, but it's hard to be invested when the core of the writing feels this way. The world itself also falls short. While the game design is pretty, yes, it is designed in such a way that makes it easy to break immersion. All the locations are little more than a tangle of hallways, with one section having friendly NPCs and merchants and whatever, and the rest a stone throw away is enemies and chests to loot and whatever. Here, Yahtzee takes the words right out of my mouth, right here on his channel, Second Wind.
And the areas you go to, most of them feel like they designed a little labyrinth of cramped corridors, carved out one section of it for all the NPCs and shops and quest givers to live in, and randomly sprinkled combats and hidden treasures across the rest. So you leave the nice friendly elf village, turn two corners, and then be fighting monsters again, with nary a velvet rope betwixt the two.
And look, I get it. On some level, all video games are sort of like this. All art is just smoke and mirrors, and as rad as video games are as a medium, they do have limitations. But still, this design breaks immersion so hard. And why are there random chests everywhere to loot? Why are there so many pointless currencies to find? I can't help it. If I see it, I gotta open the chest, but man, how ADHD do developers think we are? Clearly a fucking lot. Can't go 2 seconds without stumbling on a chest or an enemy, and yeah, part of this is just basic game design that all games do, but this is excessive. And you can't ignore those chests if you want to upgrade your gear or get a better ending in the game, because the stuff you find impacts what you can upgrade as well as faction reputation, so it's not one of those optional things you can ignore like in other games. And I ask myself, am I simply the wrong demographic for this? Not everything needs to be as meditative as Red Dead 2, which famously forces the players to chill the fuck out for longer stretches of time, but I'm exhausted. My playthrough ended after about 50 hours, and honestly, I feel like if I weren't chasing down pointless trinkets or ugly outfits I never wore, it would be down to 30. Turning off many of the HUD elements like the minimap helps a bit, but does not solve the problem. I swear, these damn AAA game companies have legions of behavioral psychologists at their disposal, and they task them with helping design the most addictive, bloated gameplay elements as possible. This isn't as bad as a modern Ubisoft game, but god, I am too old for this. Oh, and another point of, am I annoyed at how blunt the writing is, or is this game meant for 14-year-olds? Is that after making decisions in the game will let you know in purple text on the side what that means. Sometimes it's helpful because sometimes it's annoying to make a decision in a game and realize much later that, oh shit, I read that wrong. But more often than not, it would just explain the subtext of the text, and I'm like, girl, I know I'm often stoned while playing games and get easily lost without a minimap, but I was not born yesterday. Why are you telling me this? I like it when certain decisions or conversations are left ambiguous, because conversations often are. My favorite aspect of The Witcher was that I was never certain how I might be perceived, but Veilguard literally spells it out for you, erasing your own interpretations of what occurred. Oh, and for the combat, it's fine enough for the genre it's in, but feels pretty repetitive, in part because what feels like a solid 15% of combat involves chasing down and shooting these red blight or magical things for the entirety of the game. It's an obstacle made for babies, and yes, it made me feel very dumb when enemies would keep spawning in while I struggled to find the next red thing to shoot. It's exhausting. Okay, let's talk about player choice. Agency in games is difficult to write because games are made by people, and not gods with unlimited lifespans. There's going to be concessions and pointless choices to make that don't affect the outcome of the end. So I acknowledge that for a lot of RPGs are aiming for the feeling of agency and choice more so than the existence of it, but even with this caveat, Veilguard is really bad about the role-playing aspect of this fantasy RPG. Sure, you could choose a race and a background and all that jazz, which is technically role-playing, but there are little meaningful choices to be made in the game. Put one way, Veilguard is a burger joint. What is a burger? Well, that's a deep, long, debated philosophical question that will be argued for millennia, but generally, it's protein, veggies, and sauce nestled between two slices of bread. What, you're saying that could be a taco or a gyro? Shut up, don't distract me. I'm making an essay right now. Veilguard's choices are the same kind of choices you're going to be making at Five Guys. Regardless if you add onions or substitute a beef patty for a veggie one, you're still getting a burger and a side of fries. Most of the dialogue choices presented to Rook come down to saying yes in different ways with slightly different tones, as illustrated by this graph I found a while back on Reddit, but sadly did not keep track of the source. The middle part might be slightly tweaked, but the end result is almost always the same.
As supreme authority of Whiteout, I hereby declare this blight at an end!
The other types of choices you make I'll call dilemmas, such as when you are presented with a conundrum. Dragons are attacking two different cities at the same time, and you can only be in one place at once. Who do you help? The place you help will remain largely the same, but the place you don't will be ravished by the blight, and the canon associated with that city will dislike you for a bit. But otherwise, nothing changes, and those two cities really are interchangeable with no other lasting consequences that are unique to the cities themselves. Some of the companion choices you make feel a bit more substantial, however, like during Emmerich's quest. You could convince him to either become a lich and become immortal, or to revive Manfred who fell in battle. I love Manfred, so of course that's what I chose. Or for Darwin's quest, you could choose where the newly freed griffins end up, either with the Grey Wardens or with the elves. I like these from a role-playing perspective, even though, they don't change much in the grand scheme of things, but they're nice personal touches. What I don't like is how there are very little dialogue choices that are abrasive or argumentative to your companions. Okayest has a literal demon called Spite in him that is very dangerous to be around, and there are really no choices to be consistently skeptical and wary of him. Just acceptance. Hiding against magical powers even though dwarves cannot normally use magic. And once again, I had some options to be skeptical of it, but not often. And it really shows that even though you create your character and background, Rook is a defined character from the writer's point of view, with just the details changing depending on what you pick. And I think that was the wrong call to make. And here we talk about Taash and that scene. The scene with the push-ups. If you don't know, wow, you are blessed to be free from gamer outrage. The gist of it is, Taash is a Qunari living in Ravane who can uniquely breathe fire, and at the time of meeting them, is conflicted with their identity, feeling neither like a man or a woman, and feeling neither like a Qunari or a Ravani. And their whole character arc is about dealing with those feelings. People have been making a whole deal on the whole non-binary thing, but honestly, it just reads like a gay coming out of the closet story from 15 years ago, just with the clunkiness that the rest of the writing has. It's mostly fine, hampered by the fact that Taash is emotionally closer to a 17-year-old and is obnoxious and abrasive and immature.
What have I done to you, Taash?
You talk about corpses too much.
It's a rich topic.
So what I wear is a problem for you?
It's not. It's just... why dress like that? Are you trying to make your mother happy?
Earlier, I complained about how this game is pretty conflict avoidant, and weirdly enough, that is not the case with Taash. They can be a proper bastard sometimes to both Imric and Nev and whoever. Which is fine, non-binary folk are allowed to be messy too, and I hate the double standard of judging minorities differently than others, but in this political climate, with the poor writing, it doesn't help. Their mother is well-meaning, but is a scholar first and foremost, and is not the best at converting her thoughts in layman terms. During the coming out scene, there is a pretty forced misunderstanding, which would work if Taash was literally a teenager, but they are not a teenager.
So, I'm non-binary.
What does that mean?
It means I don't feel like a man or a woman.
If you are neither a man nor a woman, then what are you?
Non-binary. I just said, and I'm going to use they instead of she from now on.
If this is because I have criticized your dress or your manners...
It isn't!
Under the Qun, the term for one whose gender does not match the one given to them at birth was a Qunathlok. Perhaps you are like that.
Why do you have to keep picking at it? Why can't you just be happy for me?
Evatash, Chakra Toebra.
So I'm supposed to struggle with who I am? Even if I don't feel like I fit, even if I feel wrong?
No, you misunderstood.
Then say it better!
So it comes across as baffling since the mother seemed to be on their side, making it feel like they're clumsily adding drama for drama's sake. Later, the mother gets captured by the Dragon King and is killed right after the mom correctly affirms her gender, and I admit, I found it kind of sweet.
Rook, you will keep them safe.
Chakra Toebra.
Like I said, it's the same type of story beat we saw in the late aughts when gay marriage was being debated. This is just with a non-binary character instead of a gay one, because now no one gives a fuck if you're gay. It's clunky, but whatever. I'm glad to have seen some character growth from Taash, who I otherwise found endearing in their single-mindedness and directness. After that mission, we get an epilogue of sorts where Taash, Belle, Rook, and Isabel are drinking, and as Isabel is telling an older story about Taash, she accidentally misgenders them. And instead of quickly apologizing and moving on, which is the norm, she does this.
Best part is, while Taash is pounding that snake's nose, she's still holding the ruby in her other hand. Maker's panties, I was so proud.
Oh,
Ah, shit. They're still holding it, sorry.
What are you doing?
Pulling a barb.
Oh, okay.
a barb?
Tradition in the Lords of Fortune, from one of our old members, Barv. Good guy, but like most of us, his plans went sideways a lot. Bad blood among your crew's not good for morale, but there's not always time for big drawn-out apologies. So, when one of us screws up and we know we've screwed up, we do a quick 10 to put it right. Pulling a Barv. There we go.
As a non-binary person myself, I wanted to crawl out of my skin. Lots of transphobes have been digging into the scene for all the wrong reasons, so I'm gonna set the record straight from my perspective. This scene is so off-putting that if I did not know that the lead Dragon Age writer Trick Weeks was also non-binary, I would have thought it was either a psyop to make indie folk look like whiny babies, or at best, a cis person who is well-meaning but is completely missing the mark. We aren't a monolith. Maybe Trick Weeks would prefer someone doing push-ups after accidentally misgendering them. But boy, oh boy, this ain't it. One, the scene literally adds nothing to the story or characters. It is just masturbatory preaching. And two, the last thing I want normal, well-meaning folks to hear is that if they make a slight slip of the tongue, they will be expected to do a performative apology. Listen, a lot of my friends are some kind of queer or non-binary or whatever. I have literally heard my non-binary friends misgender themselves or other non-binary people. Turns out, undoing a lifetime of only referring to people as she or he can be a little difficult, and honest mistakes happen every now and then. If someone is deliberately not using the right pronouns, that's a different conversation. But for an instance like this, where Isabel just makes a mistake, the last thing I would want is for my friend to make a long, drawn-out apology where they make it entirely about themselves for a solid minute. And you know what's funny? If you play as a non-binary person in the game, like I did, you often get non-binary or trans-specific dialogue options. The only time I clicked on one was when Taash was questioning where they fit on the gender binary, and it felt appropriate to give my perspective on it, but otherwise, being non-binary is one of the least important parts of my identity. But for this scene, I really, really wanted a non-binary option where it could push back on this just a little bit, in some way, somehow. But no, I could not, and that's the infuriating thing. I love political games. I love wearing my heart on my sleeve, but brother, I left the church long ago. I don't like being preached to. And I mostly agree with the message, but not like this. No shit, this is going to get drama. There are a few scenes in the game I would call truly bad, but this is so bad, y'all. Cool, glad I got that out of the way. Now let's finish this essay and talk about the ending. The last mission felt very much like the suicide mission in Mass Effect 2, and while it does not make up for the game's shortcoming, it certainly doesn't add to them, and thus I finished the game feeling mostly good. In my playthrough, Darvin the Griffin Dad died, which was very sad, as well as, perhaps ironically, Taash. God, it should have been you, Okayest, it should have been you instead! And I managed to talk Solace into binding himself to the Veil. I wish there were more options than just fighting, deceiving, or convincing Solace to do that, since, once again, no matter choice, ending is basically the same with different flavorings on it, but whatever, I've long since accepted that this is an action game first and foremost, and an RPG second. This game is best enjoyed if you take it moment by moment and don't think too hard about it. A game where the idea of the characters and the world and story is going to be better than how it is implemented. If this were a TV show, it would definitely be on the Disney Channel, made for teens, with only a few adjustments. There's still plenty of smaller things to praise, like specific moments of dialogue between companions, and definitely more to nitpick, like the companion loyalty quests dragging on a bit too long, but I think I said the important things I wanted to say. Would I recommend playing this game twice? Absolutely not. Do I regret playing it all? Nah. It would have been nice if it lived up to its potential, and it would be nice to see that BioWare was back, but games aren't made by brands or companies, they're made by people, and the people who made Mass Effect and the original Dragon Age games are long gone, which is sad, but it is what it is. Though, now I am curious about those Dragon Age games. What are your favorites? What do you think about Veilguard in comparison? Let me know in the comments. I'm the Rat Shepherd, and I'll see you all for the next one. Thanks.